than 30 seconds into the video and you already know a lot about the motorcycle we are testing today, the latest from Bajaj, the Dominar 250, and I am excited. For this motorcycle, as well as because I'm back in the great outdoors, we are testing, there are new motorcycles. This is exciting. Thank you so much, COVID-19. However, our battle with the virus is not over yet, so you must do two things. One, stay inside as much as you can, stay safe, wear a mask, and two, now that you're indoors, you might as well subscribe to Powerdrift and hit the bell notification. And now back to our story, COVID-19. No, the Dominar 250. It would be silly to think of biryani as a combination of meat and rice, although that is what biryani is. In the same way, it's easy to dismiss the 250 thinking that Bajaj jammed the Duke engine into the Dominar's frame. There is more to the Dominar 250 than that. That does look a lot like a 400 because there is a lot of the 400 in the Dominar 250. In fact, the lion's chunk of this bike's frame is from the 400 but with a few small changes. The one you should notice immediately are the tires. These are narrower tires on new rims. In fact, the rear is a 130 now, not a 150 section like on the 400. It's also connected to a brand new box section swing arm, which is the same length as before, and in fact, the dimensions of the Dominar in terms of wheelbase, steering geometry, none of that has changed at all from the 400 to the 250. But in front of the swing arm is a softly tuned rear shock which is identical to the one on the 400, and remember, the current Dominar actually has nice rear suspension, but up front that's joined by these brand new 37mm upside down forks. They're not 43s like on the 400, and that leaves the front rotor. Now the rear brake is the same as before, 230mm, but the 250 gets a 300mm rotor, not a 320 like the Duke 250 or the Dominar 400. There's a lot of numbers in there, but that in essence is the frame of the Dominar 250. I think Bajaj missed a trick with the Dominar 250, and that would be weight. See, when I think of 190 kilo motorcycles, I think of the dry weight of the Fireblade. The Dominar 400 at wet weight is 2 kilos heavier. Now this one is supposed to be 7 kilos lighter than the 400 because of the KTM's engine primarily, but that's still a very heavy motorcycle. And I honestly believe it should lose weight because when you lose weight, you gain so many advantages. You gain performance and economy. But when you ride the motorcycle, you realize that the Dominar 250 isn't really interested in hot-blooded performance. It's a milder, more sedate motorcycle. It appeals to your mind a lot more than it wants to snare your heart. That's a very interesting choice for a product to make. What Bajaj did was take the KTM 250 Duke engine and put it in the frame, and they basically ignored the bottom end of it completely. So the gearbox, the sprocketing, the crank, it's all exactly the same as the KTM. What they worked on is up here. They worked on the head, and because of that the piston is slightly different as well. What they've done there is create an engine which used to be a higher revving engine and turned it into something that is friendlier to lower rev, mid-range kind of work, and they've done that by changing the cam profile primarily. And that brings the peak power and torque lower in the revs. It makes the engine smoother and easier. And the other way that they've done that is by altering the compression ratio. That is 11.9, whereas the KTM 250 Duke is 12.5:1. The lower compression ratio does mean less power and torque compared to, for example, the 250 Duke. But the power and torque figures of the Dominar 250 are very similar to the Suzuki Gixxer. But get this, the Dominar 250 makes these figures at a significantly lower RPM. And in the city, you can immediately sense that the Dominar 250 is now smooth enough, tractable enough and slick enough to make a good case for itself as a daily use motorcycle. Now that's important because as a bike that's supposed to appeal to a lot of first-time buyers, most Dominar 250s will live in the cities for a long time before they venture out onto the highways. But you didn't buy the Dominar 250 to trundle around the city, right? Eventually you want to get out. So what does it do on the highway? You'll find that the 250 is smooth, it's enjoyable, it's actually quite likable. What Bajaj has done is keep vibration under check up to about 7,500 RPM. That's about 107, 108 kmph, which means it works at a decent clip. So the character of the Dominar 400 that everybody's liked out on the highway, this one has some amount of it. Given that the Dominar 250 sits on the 400's frame, I wasn't really expecting the ride and handling package to be dramatically different, and honestly, it's not. The suspension does feel nice enough over the bumps, but I think it still can stand to be softer. But the handling has the same front heaviness at slow speeds for sure, and the lighter, skinnier tires do contribute a little bit here, so the feeling is a little bit better than the 400. But the low speed hesitance of the Dominar is still very much there in the 250. Thankfully, as the speeds rise, the motorcycle smoothens out and becomes a little bit more natural feeling. This does have a long wheelbase though, so you do lean the motorcycle quite a bit more to turn it, and therefore you will eventually run into ground clearance problems. What did surprise me is how much more cohesive and connected to itself the Dominar 250 feels. Bajaj has iterated the Dominar 400 into a motorcycle that checks a lot of boxes. The 250, while not the most emotive of the motorcycles in its class, does seem to be able to rise above that and present itself as a capable, comfortable and practical choice for a new rider. And that brings us to the traditional strength at Bajaj Auto, and that would be pricing. At Rs 1.6 lakhs ex-showroom approximately, the Dominar 250 is among the cheapest of the 250 class. The Gixxer, for example, is about 5,000 rupees more, and the Duke and Husqvarna 250s are between 25 and 45,000 rupees more. That's a big difference. Sort of like in Dragon Ball Z, Piccolo and Goku combine to create a hybrid that's more powerful than them individually. And I think that's what the Dominar 250 does. It makes the best of Bajaj's ability to do platform engineering. But it isn't more powerful for it. What it is more appealing, easier to explain to the parents, and all the little crucial things that eventually lead to a new machine in your garage. But what did you think of the Dominar 250? Let us know in the comments, like this video and share it with your friends. And before we go, I do have one more question. And that is, where does the Dominar 250 fit into its class? Is it the best 250 you can buy in India today? Now remember, the 250cc segment has become a very large playing field. From 20 bhp to 30, from 1.6 lakh rupees to 2 lakh rupees. Where does this fit in? Stay tuned, you're watching Powder. I'm so happy, this is my first PTC after the COVID-19 thing began. अरे एक्शन तो बोलो भाई, मेरे को आदत नहीं है ये करने का अभी, पता है?